Let's welcome back to the podcast Elliot Resnick, the former editor-in-chief of the Jewish Press, host of the Elliot Resnick Show right here on VIN News, and a self-described proud American, proud Jew, and a close friend of mine of the show. Elliot, thank you so much for joining us for this friendly debate about Candace Owens.
Thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, and I'm really excited. And I often joke about you before we get into Candace and is she an anti-Semite, is she not an anti-Semite? You were a very staunch I always thought that I was a staunch conservative, and then I met you, and I know, I mean this in the most complimentary way. Like, you make Rush Limbaugh a little bit look like Ketanji Brown Jackson. I don't know, but I very much respect and admire your values, and I think we're on the same page with a lot of the politics stuff. So let's see about this little friendly debate. Candace Owens, to me, has a long pattern, and I'm not alone, has a long pattern of anti-Semitic comments. I know she toes a line, so I understand you're not going to get like a soundbite of her saying, I dislike Jews. It's going to be more subtle and more nuanced. But the problem is not one comment, a string of comments over a period of a couple of years, and a kind of unapologetic attitude. So what are your thoughts? Defend Candace Owens.
Okay, so before we get into the specifics, I want to make two general points. The first general point is that accusing someone of being an anti-Semite is a very serious charge, a very, very serious charge. So not something we should do lightly. When you call someone an anti-Semite, you're basically saying that this person is vile and despicable. So we should pause.
I agree 100%. We have to be extremely careful, and we delegitimize the whole term when you start throwing it around inappropriately, unfairly.
Right, 100%. And we on the right can't stand when people on the left do it to us. They call us racists and sexists and ageists and xenophobes and homophobes and all the rest. And we can't stand it, and it's very mean-spirited. And I don't think we should do to others what we don't want done to us as a general rule. And that's, of course, what Hillel HaZaken says is the very core of Judaism. So that's point number one, I would say.
Invoking Hillel HaZaken, like I'm losing the debate already. I mean, you believe in Hillel HaZaken. I don't, but okay, continue.
No, chas v'shalom, but
it's fine.
Okay, that's point number one. Point number two is I'm assuming we're discussing this issue not just from a Jewish perspective, but from an American Jewish conservative perspective. In other words, people like you and me who care very deeply about the future of America and care deeply about the future of the West. I think that's also a Jewish issue, whether the West advances more towards Torah values or descends into decadent secular barbarism is also a Jewish issue, but particularly from an American conservative issue, we care about these things. And from that perspective, I think Candace Owens is almost indisputably a hero. She's right about almost every single major issue. She's right about the COVID lockdowns, about the COVID masks, about the COVID vaccine, about transgenderism, about the BLM riots, about the war in Ukraine, as far as I'm concerned. And she does more than just what a regular conservative does, besides the fact that she's extremely unapologetic and never ever bows down to the left, which is extremely important if we want to win in the future. Besides for that, she also discusses issues that other people do not discuss. She will discuss God. She will discuss religion. On her podcast the other day, I heard her say that people should not be living with their romantic partners before marriage. This is something I grew up with Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin. These people did not discuss these things. They discussed politics, economics. They generally did not discuss culture. And I think at this point, we understand that America will fall and the Western civilization will fall unless we reclaim our core moral cultural values. I mean, the generation of the flood was not wiped out by God because they had bad economic or political philosophies. They were wiped out because they had bad moral philosophies. So she discusses that. She discusses the perniciousness of therapy, which I think is one of the worst things in society. I think it makes us much more selfish and self-absorbed than we already naturally are. It also makes us blame our problems on other people and not take responsibility for our own actions. So she does a lot of things which I think are extremely important. Last thing I'll say for her, she even defended Derek Chauvin last year, the policeman who kneeled on George Floyd's neck as George Floyd died of a drug overdose. That took a lot of guts, a lot of courage. A lot of us maybe commiserated with Chauvin, especially as the real facts started coming out. But very few of us were willing to publicly defend Derek Chauvin. She did. She has a lot of guts. She has a lot of courage. She's done a tremendous amount for the conservative movement. So as far as I'm concerned, she has garnered so much goodwill in my book that it would take an extreme amount of bad things for me to start maliciously and viciously attacking her. So that's the way I come to this issue, those two general points.
Okay, good. And I want to pick up on that a little bit. Number one, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And yeah, look, she's very conservative. She's libertarian. not taking responsibility for the Derek Chauvin stuff and the stuff that you mentioned there. That's like a little bit, controversial, but overall, that's, to me, in a way that makes it even more dangerous, because when somebody's right, Kanye West, to me, nobody cares what the guy thinks. I mean, he's bipolar, he's mentally ill, and he's a rap star. And here we have somebody who has this massive following because of her intellect, and is 92% right or 95% right. And you said it's going to take a lot to kind of discredit that. So let me see how much we could do over here. Number one, November 3rd, okay, just a few weeks after the October 7th attack, she tweeted, "No government anywhere has a right to commit genocide ever. There is no justification for genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said." This is where Ben Shapiro and a bunch of Daily Wire people gave her a lot of backlash. Ben Shapiro called her disgraceful. She literally was clearly referring to Israel and talking about Israeli genocide, okay, which is literally the rhetoric of Hamas and the rhetoric of anti-Semites. And she didn't deny it. It's not like afterwards, she backed down or she said, "No, let me clarify, I'm not referring to." So it was very, very clear. Okay, she repeatedly has expressed,
I'll let you go on, but she sort of semi-denied it, but go ahead. I mean,
what did she say?
I, I don't think it was the best defense in the world, so I'm not going to go through the whole. I mean, she said, well, I was really responding to what a congressman said. I wasn't really referring to what Israel did. I mean, what the congressman said was related to Israel, so I don't really think it's such a great defense.
And
But
let
I
me
mean,
point
she
out,
did sort of try to defend it.
this is my concern, is that she knows she's really good at this, and there's some others also who are very good at saying things in a way that can technically, we're going to go through some other people who I think you might agree are anti-Semites, and you'll see that their comments also, technically speaking, there's always a way to wiggle out. It's some of my best friends are black. I'm not a racist. She mentioned once, I almost married a Jew, as though that somehow condones saying bad things about Jews. So this is my problem with her, is that she goes to a certain line, doesn't cross that line, and then says, "Oh, but I meant this, oh, but I meant that, oh, but look at the context." And you can get away with that once, twice, three times, but that's my concern, is the pattern. And this is my issue, is that you're going to be right, Elliot, that any given statement can be excused away, defended, and explained away. But the problem is that how many times, and no, never an apology, or never, and then I have a separate issue, which is, even if she's not anti-Semitic, and I want to be very careful, because I'm not saying that I think definitively she's an anti-Semite. However, I think that her comments are very, very dangerous and could be interpreted that way. And that's like a big part of my issue. But let me just go through some other, and I have a couple of clips here, which we'll play afterwards. But she essentially invoked rhetoric carta. And let me just say, I completely despise Neturei Karta. I view them as pure evil, going and hanging out with the Ayatollah on Shabbos and hanging out with terrorists. They're evil, evil, evil. But she invoked them as being an example that essentially ultra-Orthodox and Haredi Jews are opposed to a Jewish state, and therefore the right to Israel is a political right, not a biblical right. And she said that when she was talking to Ami Kozak. We will play you that clip a little bit later. She recently defended Nazi book burning, and more than once she said words that seemed to defend Hitler and the Nazis, or at least seemed to give some sort of context to it. Again, all those things, well, technically she's right. Technically, Hitler was a populist. She talked about Kanye West, and we'll get to some of those quotes a little bit later on. So, she defended Kyrie Irving. The book is called what? Negroes to Jews, a book that was clearly an anti-Semitic book that Kyrie Irving promoted, and she felt that Kyrie Irving was unfairly targeted because of that. So how many times does she need to say these things that are clearly very, very insensitive? By the way, she thought that the Muslim quarter in Israel was segregationist. She actually basically thought that the Muslim quarter was like a ghetto where Muslims are relegated. And Ami Kozak had to defend her. I'm going to play you that clip a little bit later as well. So you just take this pattern. If it looks like a skunk and smells like a skunk, how do you defend? And all that other stuff that you said, so what? I'm saying I think Nick Fuentes would agree with a lot of the things that Candace Owens believes in. So, and maybe even Kanye West would believe in that. That doesn't negate any of this.
I try to view people as a package deal. Also, I mean, well, first of all, let me say at the outset, I'm not comfortable with a lot of her statements about Israel. I'm not. But I never really look to these people for validation of my Israel feelings. When I'm listening to Sean Hannity or Matt Walsh or any of these people, I'm listening to them because I think they're great for America. If they have some bad opinions on Israel, I don't need their pro-Israel statements for me to feel good about myself. I don't look to them for validation for my pro-Israel feelings. I just don't. I'll give you a weird example. Meir Kahane was once asked about the welfare state. Granted, he was asked in the 60s or early 70s when it wasn't so clear that it was a horror story yet, but he was asked about it, and he said he supports it fully. He said, on social issues, I'm a leftist. That's what Meir Kahane said. Now, but I don't really care because I like Meir Kahane because I thought he was great for Israel. If I thought he had stupid opinions on America's welfare system, I don't really care. So, I mean, I look to Candace and the whole, spectrum of conservative heroes for their conservative opinions and for what they're doing good for America. If they have some bad opinions on Israel, I'm not happy about it. But that's not that doesn't define them in my eyes, and I don't view them because they're not Israel experts. They're supposed to be experts on America. So if they have some bad opinions on Israel, all right,
And
not
that,
happy about it. But I don't, go ahead.
and no, that's my no. I appreciate what you're saying very much. That's my concern, Elliot. Is I'm worried that you're a little bit jaded. That Ilhan Omar and Ocasio and Bernie Sanders, you can see them with objectivity because we anyway disagree with them and despise their views because they're radical socialists. But then somebody who's conservative and somebody who she really espouses, like you said, Ben Shapiro, who I have a lot of respect for, he's not going to defend Derek Chauvin, and he's not going to come out strongly against the vaccine. And they even debated that, Shapiro and Candace Owens. So you look at her as somebody who is so close to your values and close to your heart. I'm concerned that you're getting a little bit blurred in the other, because that doesn't defend or negate the Jewish comments. I'll give you an example. Senator Rand Paul. Okay, I think Senator Rand Paul. I'll give you a better example. Vivek Ramaswamy. I think both you and I probably would align ourselves with Vivek Ramaswamy and Rand Paul in a lot of ways. And both of them really want to defund Israel. I know technically, Vivek kind of backtracked a little bit, but they really want to defund Israel. I have no problem with that because they don't say defund Israel, single out Israel. They say, listen, we're $34 trillion in debt. We got to spend the money in Utah and Arkansas and Kentucky and not in the West Bank. So obviously I disagree with them, and I think that Israel is fundamental to American national security. But there I agree with you that, listen, what do I care what they say about it? They look at Israel, Ukraine, all in the same boat. Rand Paul in Kentucky, his constituents really don't care if Israel defends itself or not, other than maybe some evangelicals. So but Candace Owens, she's targeting us, and let me read here. Let's play the first clip.
So any legitimacy to a Jewish person that says,
Jewish media,
obviously you've seen these protests of Jewish people that are standing out there, but we just believe that the Zionist movement is entirely political, is what they're saying. It has nothing to do with actually being Jewish. Obviously, these people are Jewish, and I think some of them are Hasidic Jews. Actually,
it's a little long,
and they're saying,
no, that's good. That's like the Westboro Baptist Church of Jews, the Hasidic Jews. To say that those people are Christians, that's basically what when making a comparison, they're used as tokens in the same way, leftist white people are used in BLM riots to say, you see, they succumb to our whims and they feel guilty, and therefore all white people should be guilty for crimes of the past that they did not commit.
Yeah, well, because I have Jewish friends that are pro-Israel, and I have Jewish friends that say that they just do not support Zionism at all, and that they think that the creation of the Israel state is something that is political and has nothing to do with actually the Jewish faith at all. And so I listen to both of those sides. I try to hear both of those voices, and I don't think having a different perspectives makes any person less Jewish. And I think it's been problematic to hear, and this is not you, this isn't a criticism towards you, when they say, well, to even have that perspective makes you not Jewish, because it's so reminiscent for me of me saying I'm a Black conservative, and they say, well, even to be a Black Republican, my grandfather grew up in a segregated South. And so when I'm walking through Jerusalem and you see, and they say these are the Muslim quarters, this is where the Muslims are allowed to live, that doesn't feel like a bastion of freedom to me. So I guess.
Oh, I don't think it's where they're allowed to live in Jerusalem. I think it's that there's an Armenian quarter. It's not saying the Armenians can only live here. It's that there are communities, just like there's a Jewish community in Jersey here, and there's a Muslim community in here. I don't think,
it was noticeably a lot dirtier. It was noticeably a lot darker. And it just made me feel, as a Black American and knowing my own history, that this isn't freedom to me. Like, if you can't just decide, like, I want to live on that street, or I want to live on this street, but maybe I'm wrong, and it wasn't, they were just all choosing to live there.
Yeah, I don't know. I hear it. It really is chilling. Like, I hear that kind of comedy really scares me. Yeah, go.
Yeah, I mean, look, number one, I don't think she really knows what she's talking about. I think it's a little bit evident from that clip that she doesn't really know what she's talking about. But again, she's supposed to be an expert on America. I don't really care so much what Americans think about Israel, and I don't care what Israelis think about America. Every problem that is wrong in Israel, I blame Netanyahu 100%. I don't blame the UN. I don't blame America. I don't blame anybody except Netanyahu. I think it's entirely his fault. And everything that happens wrong in America, I think it's America's fault, no one else's fault. So when things are going, and I think I mean, look, I am defending people more than they probably should be defended in general. But this is Meir Kahana's point, and I agree with him completely. He says that a lot of non-Jewish opposition to Israel he thinks is our fault to a certain degree, and let me explain. The Shlomo HaMelech story, which people used to cite this story all the time in the 90s in the Oslo process. So two mothers come with a baby, a live baby and a dead baby, and no one knows to whom the live baby belongs or to whom the dead baby belongs. And Shlomo HaMelech doesn't know either because both mothers are claiming the live baby. And what does Shlomo HaMelech do? He says, cut the baby in half. And the real mother says, no, do not cut the baby in half. And the fake mother, the one who was lying, says, by all means, cut the baby in half. I'll take half. The other mother will take half. And Shlomo HaMelech knows to whom the baby belongs because he knows only the real mother does not want the baby cut up. The other mother doesn't really care. So we have a problem in Israel. There's a land that's being disputed. The Arabs say, absolutely do not cut up the land. We want the entire land. The entire land belongs to us. What do the Jews say? You know what? You could cut it up. As soon as the Arabs start behaving, they can take half and we can take half. So if you're a non-Jew looking from the outside, you're Shlomo HaMelech here. You have two disputants. One say the entire land is theirs. The other party says they could take half. So I'm sorry. It's our fault partially. For 40 years, we have told the world that, you know, the land doesn't really belong to us. As soon as the Arabs start behaving, we'll give them a part of it. They've heard this for 40 years. What do you expect from them?
And it's a great point. It's look, 100% that. And first of all, you're invoking Tanakh and Chazal and Hillel Hazakin. Here, I brought a couple of Candace Owens clips. I figured I'm prepared for this thing. Little did I know that I'd have to go through, you know, Shas and the poskim in order to have this debate and be on par with you. No, look, these are all great points. And by the way, and the compartmentalizing, I like that because I do the same thing. You know, when I see that somebody who's an expert on American politics just has no clue about Israel, and it's just not their wheelhouse, and it's somebody I respect, and it used to bother me, like, are they wrong? Am I wrong? Question myself, and you're like, listen, that is not their expertise. They're uninformed. That's not their focus. So I get it, you know, and the same way, you know, I'm not holding in Israeli politics and, you know, the Haredi draft and all these issues as much as a lot of people over there. So 100% I respect that. When you say I don't, you know, you make another point. You're like, listen, I can kind of take the 95%, and I do the same thing, by the way. You know, I take people, especially somebody who's informed and well-read, and you hear somebody who you know doesn't know a certain topic, you don't really trust them, but you could take the content. Some people, like, they need to believe in the person. Like, listen, if I trust this person, I trust him because I don't really know myself, so I'm going to have to, it's like a doctor. You know, it's all or nothing. Like, you know, well, I only believe the doctor what he says about my heart, but I'm not going to believe what he says about my liver. I think you better get another doctor. So I understand in this situation, I respect all that. So that's when I get to the secondary point, which is it's dangerous rhetoric. Let's give her the best of intentions. Let's attribute, you know, that she's as sincere and genuine and that she actually does not dislike Jews. But this kind of rhetoric, it's so irresponsible. When she starts talking about, you know, Mein Kampf and freedom of speech and, you know, giving people the right to say things that they disagree with. The problem is when you invoke tropes and when you start talking about Neturei Karta as though they're mainstream Jews and not people that we view as evil, and when you start talking about comparing the Muslim Quarter and saying it's dirty to the segregated South pre-Civil War, that's the kind of stuff where even if she's not, there are no question there's neo-Nazis and anti-Semites who are looking at that and listening to her because she has that crowd, I'm sure, listening to her and saying, oh, wow, look at those Jews. So I definitely think it's dangerous rhetoric. It's not something we could just ignore.
Yeah, I'll grant you that I'm not happy about what she's saying. And because you're right, on the left, this is considered normal to be anti-Jewish. And she's, you know, one of the only ones, or maybe the only one on the conservative right who's giving at least some opening for people who don't like Jews or Israel to walk through. I'm not happy about it. But I mean, again, whatever I'm about to say, you also know, so I'm not saying any chidushim here. She's a contrarian by nature. She does not like mainstream opinions. She doesn't any opinion that everyone holds. She immediately, her instinct is, let me think about the other side. Why is everyone so strong on this opinion? Maybe they're all wrong. Maybe the opposite opinion is true. She's also an America First type. She only wants money to be spent here. So, and she resents, and by the way, I resent a little bit. Look, we're complicated people. We always have been. I don't understand why American Jews are hanging up signs of kidnapped Israelis all over American cities. I don't see why it's a New Yorker's business in the middle of Manhattan to see that there was an Israeli kidnapped in Gaza. It's like we're shoving it down their throats. Why should they care? And then we immediately demand $14 billion, and we have 3 ads in the Super Bowl bought by, I mean, I don't know if that's correct. It's what I'm taking her word for it. I didn't research it. She claims that the Israeli government bought 2 ads in the Super Bowl. I mean, I could see her resenting that. Like, why is a foreign government buying an ad in the Super Bowl, which is an American sporting event, essentially, trying to play on our heartstrings to send them money? I could see how she would resent that, especially as an American firster. So, I'm trying to give Malamed Schluss on her. I see where she's coming from. Again, I'm not happy with some of the things she says. I think some of the things she says are ignorant, ill-informed, and I agree with you. It's a problem in terms of what you're saying. It does open a door to legitimize a certain anti-Israel hatred on the right, which didn't really exist before. I'll grant you all that, but I don't think she's an anti-Semite. And I'll say the last thing, as before we continue, of course, but I think she's a bold enough person that if she were an anti-Semite, she would come out openly and say, I just don't like Jews. I'll say it openly. I don't think she's hiding anything. So I think, at least in her own mind, she does not. It is not the case that she's an anti-Semite, or she would say it openly, as far as I can tell her personality.
There's our defense. I'll prove to you she's not an anti-Semite, because if she was, she would say, I hate Jews. She's too
Yeah,
to be an
I think so.
anti-Semite.
She doesn't hide any other views she has.
I get that point. It's an interesting one. Look, the hostage posters, you're hitting on a very, very sensitive topic. And obviously, your heart and my heart, let's be very, very clear. I mean, our hearts bleed and break. And it's gut-wrenching what the hostages are still going through to this day and their families. So you don't mean any insensitivity, and I get that. You just mean that Jews are generally more discreet, and generally we keep things more tsanua, and to go and kind of put it out there in public. I don't know that I agree with you, but that's an interesting point. No, the people who are going and ripping down these posters are vicious, evil anti-Semites. They're not coming from your sentiment, but you're kind of saying that it's never been our way, and probably the idea is to put pressure. Probably the idea is that people think that it actually has an effect. It's not just like, hey, let's be out there for the sake of being out there, some kind of BLM thing. It's like, we need to clearly not. I don't even mean to suggest that. It's obvious that people are doing it because that's their status. They feel like we need to put an enormous amount of pressure. This is a once in our lifetime thing. Thankfully, that it doesn't happen more often. So it's pikuach nefesh. We need to do anything and everything, even to the expense of going against kind of the Jewish nature, which is to be much more hidden, much more private, much more discreet. I get that. Final question on this, and then I want to ask you about a separate topic. You say you're very reluctant, hesitant to label anti-Semites. I completely agree. Three names, okay? Kanye West, Ilhan Omar, and the New York Times. Are they anti-Semitic in your opinion?
Yeah, maybe I'm close too much on these people. That's a good question. Kanye West has problems. I don't. He has problems. Mental, I think, problems.
I respect. You're consistent. I actually mean this. I know. I'm not trying to be tongue in cheek here. Kanye West is bipolar, so it's like you're going to say, somebody who's mentally ill. It's not even a question of hatred of Jews. It's mental illness. It's like a whole different. I'm not trying to agree, but I respect your opinion.
No, I wouldn't say it's mental illness. It's just like he's all over the place. One day he'll say he loves Jews. The other day he'll say Jews have ruined my career. I mean, I don't know where he's at exactly on Jews. It's just, yeah, it's been a while also, so I don't remember the exact comments. I mean, obviously some of the things he said were horrific, but I mean, in his own mind, is he?
Just so you know,
go ahead, sorry.
He held up a chart, a spreadsheet, a colored spreadsheet, different people, different religions, of who is in the media in Hollywood, who controls the media, and the Jews were colored red. He held it up to a bunch of reporters, and it was red everywhere, because there are a lot of Jews. Yeah.
That's the problem, actually. I mean, and I'll get to it in a second. We are unfortunately involved and overrepresented in every movement, both good and bad. So that my own defense is that, there's this famous line about Jews, that Jews are just like every other people, just more so. So we are involved in it. So unfortunately, we're involved in a lot of bad movements, but we're also overrepresented in a lot of good movements. So, like, let's say you're a big right-winger, and you hate leftists. Okay, there have been a lot of Jews in leftist causes, but essentially the entire modern libertarian movement has been Jewish. Von Mises, Jewish. Murray Rothbard, Jewish. Milton Friedman, Jewish. Ayn Rand, Jewish. So, I mean, we're overrepresented in every cause, both bad and good. But I could see some people, I mean, there was a book, I forget what the name of it is, I'm now going to get into real hot water. It was written by a Jewish historian about the Weimar Republic. Apparently, at the forefront of almost every decadent movement in the Weimar Republic were Jews. Decadent art, decadent music, all the bad things that we would all hate about modern culture, a lot of that was headed by Jews in Germany. It's like after reading the book, you're almost like, oh, I almost understand Hitler. And then you have to catch yourself like, well, of course I don't understand him. You'll just murder 6 million people because you dislike, what 100 German Jews are doing to your culture. Obviously, fine. So you have to catch yourself. But you almost could see how people, they see a Jew here, they see a Jew there, and the Jews are the head of pornography. Whatever the case is, like you start seeing, if you start, getting to their mind, you can see how they could then go from there to say, yeah, these Jews are just ruining everything.
Yeah, but again, the problem is they're not suggesting there's nothing wrong with people who happen to be Jewish who are involved in all sorts of things and Nobel Prizes and everything else. What they're really implying, and the Jewish space lasers and all that, they're implying, and the Rothschilds in the banking industry, that like we're getting together in some room somewhere, and we're like collaborating about this. I mean, like where's the button where you control the weather? Like that's it. I don't think anybody has a problem. I don't think there's any hatred to be had from any group being successful, and there's plenty of successful non-Jews out there. I want to be very clear, but I don't think that that's what leads to hate and anti-Semitism. I don't see there being any problem that Jews are successful if you're correct about your numbers.
No, okay, no, but look, it is clear. I mean, I don't know the pornography. I never researched, but it is clear. Certainly, I'll say in communism, the famous line: most Jews were not communists. But most communists, or I mean, not most, a huge minority, let's say, of communists were Jews. That's a fact. It's not, I don't think that's debated by anybody. We have been overrepresented in a lot of bad causes, but the only thing you could say is the opposite. We've also been overrepresented. There would be no atom bomb. We wouldn't have won World War II if not for Jewish scientists. So yes, we were represented in a lot of bad things. We're also represented in a lot of good things. So it's like you have to take the good with the bad. Jews are like every other people, just more so. And that's why the anti-Semitic claim is not, you don't just kill people because you don't like what certain Jews are doing, obviously. But I could see how some people, would get there. Well, we'll skip Kanye West for a second. Ilhan Omar, I think, hates Israel. I don't know if she hates Jews. I really don't. She hates Israel. I don't know if she hates Jews. I'll be honest with you. And the New York Times, I think, hates Israel and hates religious Jews. I don't know if they would say they hate Jews per se. I don't think they probably do. I think a lot of secular leftists who are very anti-Israel and very anti-religious Jews, they would deny to the heavens, and sincerely so, that they are anti-Jews. They just hate Jews who are really Jewish, but they don't hate Jews.
Yeah, okay. Look, at least you're consistent here. You're not defending Candace because she's conservative. I like that. I don't agree with you. I don't agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I like that we can have this intellectual back and forth. I love it, and hear each other's points and have this respectful disagreement. But you make some interesting points. I definitely, I really strongly disagree with a lot of what you say, but I love it. Now, totally separate note here: President Biden and his attitude toward Israel and all the pressure he's putting for the ceasefire and for Israel to go easy and even to deliver humanitarian aid, which is clearly getting swooped up by Hamas. What are your thoughts about Biden and Israel in a couple of minutes or less?
Again, thank you for saying I'm consistent. I don't really care about Biden. I don't. Because Netanyahu always has the ability to say no. And if he doesn't say no, that's on him, not on Biden. I couldn't care less what Biden's opinion is. I mean, look, it's always nice when non-Jews like us or when non-Jews recognize the truth. We all look forward to that. We look forward to the day when Esav recognizes that Yaakov has something special to offer the world. That's what Hirsch's explanation about the angel. Esav's angel, when dawn hits, Esav's angel finally recognizes Yaakov, and it says to Yaakov, please bless me. Or Hirsch interprets dawn as the dawn of history. So meaning towards the end of history, Esav will finally recognize Yaakov's contributions to the world and his blessings to the world, and that he should be thankful for Yaakov, not hate Yaakov. So we always look forward to Esav liking Yaakov and recognizing what we're here in this world to do. But that being said, I don't really care when. It doesn't bother me if Biden is not on Israel's side or not. It's nice on a theological level, but Netanyahu could say no. Anytime Israel does the wrong thing, I blame Israel entirely, not America.
Yeah, but here's my problem is that Israel does so much for the world. Israel is the policeman in the Middle East, and they need support because they're doing everybody else's bidding. Because when Iran is plotting Iranian terror plots in France, in Germany, who always thwarts it, who always warns Germany and France and Europe and gives them the heads up? That's the Mossad. Okay, who's always doing these mystery explosions in Natanz in the Iranian and blowing up these Iranian nuclear scientists? It's always Israel. So literally, if Israel did not exist, the amount of military and NATO and everything else that has to go on, and they sit there and they know it, but like nobody actually talks about it, and then they go and condemn Israel for apartheid. So my problem is that Israel basically acts as a wing of the U.S. military. I'm not saying that the U.S. needs to be going and bombing countries all over the place, but these are existential threats in the Middle East. And without Israel, you can make a case that Iran has a nuclear bomb years ago and that they use it in a lot of places.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, Americanis always say that there are no friends in this world, there are only allies and interests. That America is not friends with allies with Israel because they are, like, they get along on a personal level. They have interests. They need Israel for various reasons. During the Cold War, they needed Israel as a bulwark against the Russians. But Americanis always say, if an American politician or government decides that it's not in their interest to ally themselves with Israel, by all means, cut off all funding. At the end of his life, Kahana said cut off all funding anyways. He thought theologically and psychologically it was terrible for Israel to be reliant on America. But I agree with you 100%. Yes, America, I think, does get a lot out of Israel. And I think it's stupid what Biden is doing, probably from an American perspective. But if he and his people make their calculation that they don't want to send money to Israel or they don't want to be friends with Israel, by all means, go ahead and do what you want. That doesn't bother me as a Jew.
We're going to leave it there. Elliot, this has been an amazing, amazing conversation on so many levels. Conversation, debate. Yeah, close it. Yes.
Thank you. Can I just one more thing? Because going back to Candace, I just think when someone's a big friend, and you agreed that she's basically a 92% or 94% friend on the issues that we care about, I think when someone's a friend, you should disagree with them in a more respectful manner. Not you, I'm saying you, Rick Lauer, not you personally, and not in a vicious manner. And it bothers me, some of the people on Twitter who are attacking her in a vicious manner. So I'll just say that also.
Okay. But to clarify, there's a difference between 92% friend and 92% right, because I think she's right about 92%. But if the other 8% is in fact hate, and that's a discussion, then that's not 92%. I'm 92% friend, except when I punch you every other week. So
okay, well, I guess I'll grant you that. Fine.
But yeah, but I get your point. Still well made. All right, we'll leave it there. Former editor-in-chief of the Jewish Press, host of the Elliot Resnick Show, and a very, very passionate conservative and passionate Jew, Elliot Resnick, on the Yaakov M Show on the Vin podcast.